Hey all, welcome to the Enterprise Excellence Podcast, and it's a community event, this one, where you will hear other members of the Enterprise Excellence community asking questions of Mr. Richard Steele, being led by David Avery, this event. It's really excited to have David actually lead out this podcast. David's part of the Enterprise Excellence group, so is Richard Steele. Everyone, you can get involved in this community if you want. Just go to the Enterprise Excellence group website and contact us and reach out to get involved. It's a great way to be able to collaborate directly with our global experts. Let's get to the show. Welcome to the Enterprise Excellence Podcast. It is such a pleasure to have Mr. Richard Steele on the show with us today, being hosted by Mr. David Avery. This show is on the important topic of AI and productivity. We're going to explore how to truly get gains through AI, but also any technology. This episode applies to anyone looking to get results through any form of technology out there. It's with one of our global experts, Mr. Richard Steele, who's an expert in operational and enterprise excellence. Let's get to the show.
Welcome to the Enterprise Excellence Podcast, where we share knowledge from global experts and practitioners in how to embed excellence for sustainable results. How to create a culture of continuous improvement and innovation using best practices in operational excellence, customer experience and sales, leadership, strategy, people development, and environmental and social good.
I'm your host, Brad Jeavons, coming to you from Brisbane, Australia. Enhancing an organisation's ability to continuously improve and innovate at all levels creates amazing results, up to 10 times productivity improvement, customer and employee experience increases, as well as safer operations and reduced environmental impact. Unfortunately, most programs deployed to enhance a company's ability to improve and adapt fail to deliver. A select few have overcome this trend and truly embedded excellence. This show explores these organisations and steps you can take to improve yours. This show is proudly brought to you by the Enterprise Excellence Community and Group, which is focused on helping organisations embed excellence for sustainable results and a better future. Through the group, you can attend workshops focused on the most important topics to embed excellence. You can also get hold of free resources from the download section of the website, or reach out to one of our members for some advice and help. Visit enterpriseexcellencegroup.com.au to learn more.
All right, well, we'll get cracking. Good morning, everyone. We are incredibly privileged today to be joined by Mr. Richard Steele to talk about an exceptionally important topic, which is productivity, AI, and prosperity into the future. Mr. Richard has had over 30 years experience working in continuous improvement and operational excellence, and I'm really excited to have a chat to him today. So kicking it off, Richard, if you wouldn't mind giving us a brief synopsis of your history and what has led you to being so passionate about AI.
Morning, folks. I'm in New Zealand, if you didn't realise. So I guess I was into lean very early, very lucky, back in the early 90s in the UK and automotive industry, working with a bunch of Japanese people that were helping our organisation. I ended up obviously here in New Zealand. There was a bit of a lifestyle change. And I guess along the way, I got involved in a few interesting kind of roles. And I remember working for a .com, for those of you who remember. .com's very big in 99 and 2000, then came the bubble. So I was working with people that were all very focused on how good the website looked, and I was like, well, how are we going to get everything to work? Because, you know, we need to order stuff and pay bills and run businesses. So we were at that point sort of coming up with now what is, you know, common in terms of the internet kind of, retail model and so on. And then along the way, I guess, getting involved in projects whereby they were either just embarking on a new technology, a rollout, to boost efficiency and effectiveness, or potentially I'd get a phone call where they say, look, we've had this implementation, hasn't gone so well in terms of it's taken us 3 times as long to do stuff, you know. So you go in with a lean lens and sort of look at how you might, do the value stream improvement, map the process, and fix things. So I'd say probably over the last 20, 30 years, I've probably been involved in numerous, be 20 odd kind of technology, either fix ups or preparing people and process before. So that's kind of been my major kind of influence. And I guess just recently, I think it was last year, I was sitting down thinking, oh yeah, well, some people want me to do some process improvement work. I'm actually not sure about this AI thing, because how can I advise people on what the best way forward is if I don't understand what it's all about, So that's why I started to do a little bit more digging around and finding out how maybe we can do this thing a little bit smarter.
Yeah, fantastic. And the timing couldn't be any better to upskill in that topic. Australia and New Zealand, currently our productivity is going back, and I think over the last couple of years has been at minus 2.22%. Where do you see the real productivity gains will come from with AI in the next 3 to 5 years? Because AI is moving forward quicker than any technology wave that we've ever had before. So where do you really see the gains that we will be able to achieve from it?
I mean, at the moment, and I was just saying before we started, I was in Wellington 2 days ago, and I was just talking to a few people that are in government. So there's an awful lot of people learning how to use Copilot right now. And that might help you write some better emails. It might help you with, I know one of my mates was doing some policy work, which is, quite good. But really, we need to get a little bit deeper. So I think looking at, the handovers, maybe some of the how we capture knowledge, actually the reporting, the scheduling, a lot of that manual admin burden that we tend to have. But really, these are not embedding AI in the core system. So I think we said 3 to 5 years. I think the work will be done on how we actually embed AI into some of the core systems. And this is going to require a full kind of system redesign. So I'm not sure what's happening in the ERP space, or whether we still call it the ERP space. But there's going to be lots of system redesign and possibly a plethora of different ways that AI is going to be, going right across all the kind of different business processes.
And in your experience and in your understanding, how do you feel that leaders are dealing with the rapid change that is occurring around them? And what do you think that, generally speaking, is a misunderstanding that they have around the implementation of AI in what they do?
I think there's a lot of talk about, well, look, the danger is that AI is going to replace people. Again, a conversation I've been having is, hey, look, we're going to get 10% improvements in productivity, and we're not going to need as many people, and we won't need marketing anymore because all that will be done by a bot and so on. But actually, it's how things flow through organizations is where we're going to get the gains. Helping, making those kind of business decisions. Actually, for leaders, they probably need to think about how they get themselves upskilled to understand how to, I guess, deploy AI. Because the software people are going to be selling you software. They're not really going to want to understand the kind of end-to-end business process. And I think people, the rank and file on the shop floor, they also are going to need some awareness of what AI means, because you're going to need people that do the work involved in how we're going to best implement AI across all our systems.
Yeah, and across a number of organizations, technology expenditure and AI expenditure has been quite high, but it hasn't been accompanied with productivity improvements. What would you put that down to?
A number of things. I mean, I think the word people talk about digital transformation. I'm not sure because it's February whether we're still using that word. But I mean, it's very much the same conversation we're having with AI. And even back in the day, 20 years ago, SAP, as that was being rolled out across a lot of companies. But I think, we really need to focus on the people side. So I just recap your question again.
Yeah, so I was saying so expenditure in AI and technology has continued to be high, even over the last 2 years when our productivity has been going backwards. So most organizations and leaders would be, to your point earlier, investing to get a productivity improvement, or we're going to get 10% or 20%, but it actually hasn't overall led to a productivity improvement, even though we have more technology and systems available to us. So it was so the question was, why do you think that has occurred?
I think it's it's the same as a lot of technology implementations whereby a lot of effort is put into planning and doing. So look at the plan, do, check, act. Often, they expend a lot of the time and effort and budget on forcing things into an organization, never go back to check whether or not the benefits have been achieved. So they don't put a lot of effort into training people. Often they don't put a lot of effort into documenting the process, SOPs and so on. So that whole plan, do, check, act, we never end up doing the checking and the acting unless there's somebody wants to know where the $1 million went. I've had conversations with people saying we spent $1 million and we don't know whether we're any better off. And I've asked the question, well, did you measure the process before you started and understand what the things were you were looking to improve? And the answer's been no. So I think this is the same, right? Unless people understand what are the things we're trying to improve, how do we then, I guess, measure that and then say, okay, well, how do we then, coming out of a transformation, how do we stabilize the process? And again, that's down at the grassroots level as well.
Yeah, great. I think following on from that, I read a great article last week that says AI is the biggest enhancer of process that we've ever had. And if you have a great process to start with, AI will enhance that process and make it better than it's ever been. But at the same time, if you've got an average process or one with multiple constraints along the way, AI can enhance that as well and make it even worse. So it's almost that concept around ensuring that you get the value right of your flow at the beginning before using technology. It's not just going to fix all the pains that you've had without understanding what the root cause of those pains were in the first place.
Well, there is that whole adage, rubbish in and rubbish out. And it's the same with AI. Where your data is, how it's stored. I'm hearing people telling me that even using Copilot, unless you have your file structure set up, so that, and then everybody has a standard approach for how they set up their files, it makes it difficult for Copilot to find stuff. So, which is for those of you that have used Teams, it's very similar with Teams. If you don't set it up correctly and have a standardized process, then it's not going to be as efficient as you might hope. I see Ryan's got his hand up. He's either waving at me or asking a question.
Yes, sorry to interrupt. You sort of started covering that off. I was going to say I've been using a bit of ChatGPT to help me with my scheduling sheet in Google Sheets, and I find it's quite frustrating in a way where you can give it all of your parameters and all of your measurements of success. However, it will go, here's your biggest number, that's your priority, not looking into the script you've given it, the points you've given it. It just thinks, oh, there's a point of attention, and it would completely shift your entire schedule or your parameters to what it thinks is best, not what you've told it should be best.
Yeah, and I think I see another analogy that having like chat PT is great, but it's like having a very enthusiastic school leaver or maybe university graduate. So it's got all that capability, but actually hasn't got a lot of experience or common sense. And I've been using Claude and Copilot and ChatGPT and Gemini and so on, and it's quite fun to actually do some work and then give it to another AI to get a second opinion, or even a third opinion. And they are wanting to change things, and sometimes they make deliberate mistakes that don't make a lot of sense. And you challenge them, they go, "Oh yes, I apologize for that," and so on. So I mean, I did actually have a university student for the last couple of years that we brought through uni and then took on as a grad, and it's like having him around, because he was all full of enthusiasm and thought he knew everything because he heard it in a lecture. but actually practically some of these things don't work.
And the other thing that I find amazing is just the rate of change. I got a phone call the other day, and for at least 2 minutes of that phone call, I thought that I was speaking to a human being, a salesperson, and this salesperson was exceptional for that first 2 minutes. And then they just said something wrong, and that they almost had me. And then and I thought, oh no, I'm going to ask just a random question. Then I asked them what the best golf club was in the local area, and then that just threw it. But it was AI, so
Yeah.
it was a computer that was selling me a product, and it was a full 2 minutes it had me. So the rate of change is just phenomenal. And with that being said, as you know, we've got a lot of leaders and managers on the line today that are wanting to understand what they should be most focused on. So, you know, Richard, if you had to give advice to everyone listening on the call today, what do you think that they should be focusing on to ensure that their organization, their business, their team can benefit from AI and not just experiment with it? I think when you mentioned earlier with you know the co-pilot and you know just learning how to ask what's the best coffee shop in Wellington and those sort of things that sometimes we use it for. But what would you tell leaders to be most focused on to benefit from the evolution and the rate of change and not get?
I think, yeah, I mean, again, number one would be around don't try and automate what you don't understand. And this is very common where, you know, I'm not going to have a go at IT people, but often they'll go in and they'll say, oh, yeah, well, implement the software. So with AI, if you don't understand it, there's a chance that actually you are going to create more work, you know, or potentially having to go back and you know, to sort of basics. But I mean, it's okay to do a bit of experimentation. I was reading an article about I think Toyota, as in Motor Corporation, they use I think they use Gemini, and they'd given some training to some of the managers, and they were using it. And there were 10,000 examples of how they'd used Gemini in doing some very simple, almost Kaizen type CI improvements within Toyota. Right, I'd like to see a list of that. But it's okay to do that. But they actually invested some time in AI literacy because people will fear what they don't understand. So managers need to get themselves upskilled. I actually did. We have the Open Polytechnic here in New Zealand, which is an online kind of tertiary education, and that was $199 well spent in terms of a 10-week course. So it's probably a day a week that I did just to get up to speed, and it was designed for managers and understand maybe what they needed to be aware of and how to write prompts and so on, you know. But you know, the idea of being able to change, you know, so we talk about what we need to do to change the business. So that also applies, you know, with AI, and it will affect your people quite deeply as well. You know, so it makes certain that, you know, whatever culture that you have is you need to either improve or preserve that because AI is going to make people very skeptical, possibly, but also afraid of losing their job or being asked to do their job differently. But again, currently today, it is like an enthusiastic university graduate. They're very good assistants, but you've just got to watch exactly what the outputs are. It's not yet, I don't think, trustworthy.
Yeah. And I think the trust comes from use. And the more that you see it, and the more you can experience it working. I recall a presentation I think I went to about 18 months ago, and they hadn't ever spoken to a futurist before, but the futurist was doing a presentation, but in the background, his AI, he called his teammate was in the background listening to everything, listening to our questions, listening to the whole, and then as a part of the show, if you could call it that, we were then having a conversation with his AI teammate, at the end of it, and the insights that it was getting from our conversations and all of our questions was then able to tell the presenter what sections were best, what sections that engaged the most, what was his tone, what was he doing. But he had obviously spent a hell of a lot of time training, teaching, and he spoke to us about prompting, and he said if you don't have a list of prompts within your organization right now that you are using and that you are sharing within your teams, so that people are, it's like having if you want to get fit, you've got to have a workout plan. If you want to train your AI system, then those prompts are what are going to train it and what going to make sure that you're getting the right results to ensure that you're getting the accuracy.
Yeah, and that's exactly true. I mean, it's almost like you have to be able to write the language that it'll understand and so on. But I mean, it really comes down to, before you go full hog thinking you can automate everything, you need to consider the human touch, right? So Toyota actually, they have a word for this, automation, which is automation with the human touch. So where best, you will put a person in a process to make certain that you get required output, whether it be quality and so on. And those you haven't heard the stories, if you go to a Lexus factory, there's more people on the shop floor than there are, say, in a standard Corolla factory, because they literally want people to be making certain that everything is as it should be. So I think for now, that's where we are with AI, is that yes, it's a very good assistant. It can churn out stuff. It can I use it to assess a paper that I had, and it took about a second to assess this paper, but I had to go through and check it. And some of the language that was used wasn't quite appropriate. And actually, it told me this had passed, and actually it hadn't passed. That we were looking for a sign off, and it hadn't been signed off. So after the third time when I said, "Are you sure?" it went, "Oh no, sorry, it's a not yet attained," sort of stuff. So it really isn't, infallible. And there's always the disclaimer. It will say, ChatGPT can make mistakes. Check important info. So I think we could be doing that for a little while longer.
Yeah, that's what my son got caught out last year. He had to do a presentation for Grandparents' Day, and he came home and he showed us what he had done, and it had all the American holidays as the reasons why he loved spending time with his grandparents. So we were quickly able to tell him that you've got to make sure that it's using Australian holidays if you're going to whip out your PowerPoint presentation in seconds using Copilot. So with that being said, if a business is wanting to embark on this journey, how would you advise them to approach the balance between automation and human judgment, which I think, because based on what you're saying now, what you've said is that it's not perfect. So how would you say you're going to get the most productivity out of it using the balance between the AI, the automation, and then human judgment?
Well, again, I mean, it comes back to that understanding your process and involving the people that do the work, because I can write a book on examples of where humans have plugged bad technology processes in the past. So it's like, okay, well, you need to really understand what's going on in your business. You're looking for, I guess automation works well where it's repetitive kind of work, where there's a set pattern. And I guess there's some volume as well. I mean, reviewing lots of invoices maybe, or actually reviewing schedules, things that have not a lot of variability, and lots of, I guess, fail safes and so on also. But the danger really is to sort of say, okay, well, let's redesign the whole process and put it all against AI and having no kind of human check. So I think that augmentation between humans doing the oversight, and then the AI or the bots doing the the routine stuff, the stuff that fits. I mean, you're asking the question about which golf club would recommend, completely through it. And I've seen a story about that we have, I don't know whether you got over there, but KFC is now having bots. So you can go to the drive-through and apparently you can confuse it quite easily by asking for water or something, or I don't know,
Something healthy.
something healthy. Yeah. So it really is. It won't be able, like I said, it's an enthusiastic kind of graduate. It's not going to be able to handle the dodgy stuff. So really look for that stuff that is routine that you have to do. And there's plenty of those around. I'm sure.
And I think there's been a number of examples where automation and AI has been used without understanding the process and without understanding that it might make incorrect decisions. I think anyone in Australia would know about the robo-debt, where unfortunately decisions were made just using pure technology, and electronic debts were sent to individuals without anyone checking it, and the consequences were dire. So I think there's been real life examples of the impact of not understanding that the decision-making process is not infallible, as you said. For those of us and organizations that are on the AI journey and maybe running projects currently, or have started projects and they haven't quite started to reap the benefits of their implementation and what their process. What would you say are some of the early warning signs for those leaders that their implementation is going to fail?
Again, apologies to anybody from IT, but I mean, if AI is just owned by IT and it's an IT thing, that's a bit of an early warning sign, obviously, because really need to understand what the measures are that you're trying to achieve, right? What's the baseline before you actually do the kind of transformation piece. Also, there must be some kind of theory or how is this all going to translate into productivity. So what would be the plan, if we did X and did Y and AI was doing this and that, how is that going to result in saving and productivity? I'm sure we've all heard stories about previous IT projects where they've automated something and you had to hire 5 people afterwards to actually get things to go through, to manage all the exceptions and so on. So having a plan, I suppose, in terms of before you deploy the tools, is what's your strategy, what's your plan. You need to have clear sponsorship from senior management. This sounds like a lean pitch to me, actually. But really, making certain that you've got representation right across from different parts of the business, and obviously that bottom up. So getting people from the shop floor also involved in terms of their roles are going to change. So the human resource part of change, I suppose, people roles changing, but potentially I've seen a lot of fear in people where you've asked them to stop using a spreadsheet they've been using for 10 years, and that's more than they can handle. So AI is really going to upset a lot of people. So you might have some fallout there in terms of the people side as well.
Yeah, and I love the lean pitch, because if your people are not involved in the creation of systems, and those closest to doing the job are not involved, then it can have catastrophic outcomes. I was talking to someone a couple of weeks ago who they've implemented a very expensive and large payroll system, and pay week has now become a pay fortnight, because the payroll team now has to run a manual spreadsheet just to make sure that the payroll system is accurate, because they've never been able to get it accurate. So you've now doubling up work by the original spreadsheet works better than what the very expensive implementation of a payroll system. So it's, yeah.
But I mean, for me, it's back to that because productivity is the thing we all want, So what's the theory? How are we going? How are we gonna, if we're doing this, what are we gonna do? Where are we gonna get these benefits from? So again, it comes back to measurement. And it may be measuring things you're not currently measuring, because actually, what's the rule? Half the things you measure are wrong, and half the things you need are missing. So going into it saying, well, this is what we're looking for, and this is how we're going to achieve it, and these are the milestones along the way. But yeah, we've all heard of the stories of things not going so well and requiring humans to fix things up. So I don't think AI will be any different if it's left to be implemented without due care and attention.
Yeah, agreed. And I think in that particular instance, when I asked her how to, when were you involved in the implementation, she said no. It was done by two leaders, and they just gave it to me on one that was rolled out. So I think having humans involved in the process is exceptionally important. So we also could have leaders on the call and listening later who would be about to embark on their AI journey. It could be starting next week. That could be their CEO or their board could have said to them next week, Monday, we're getting around a table and we've got to start using AI, which I've come across myself. What would be the three things that you would say to them that they should be focused on to create a long-term competitive advantage within their business?
I think number one, and it's back to the mapping the process or understanding the process. So where are people actually being consumed in your process, right? I'll tell you an example. I work with a tertiary education institute, and they may have had 4 people in academic registry, but they had like 54 in enrollments. It's like, well, let's go and look at what's going on in enrollments first, shall we? And they're like, well, we'd quite like to look at academic registry. Well, actually, no, we've got 54 people in enrollments. And yeah, there's a story behind that particular example. But I mean, you look at where a lot of your time is getting sucked out of your process, where your human resources are going. Often it's to patch up the process. So that's number one. So actually, where are you actually bleeding in terms of your human resource? And potentially that could also apply to your quality. So where you're getting customer feedback, in terms of not delivering on the promise. I probably then would say, okay, well, let's actually do the pilot next. So I would say pick one area. And this is often, again, a bit of a lean thing. Do the model, say, oh, well, let's try this out. Let's do a bit of a redesign. Let's embed some AI, and then actually do the plan, do, check, act. So make certain that you don't go high five, we did the pilot, just because you've implemented a change. Actually, let the process run for a while, and then actually say, okay, well, let's see what we did in terms of the benefits. Also, building that internal capability. So before you hire a bunch of consultants that come in and try to guide you, and then obviously come Monday they're kind of out of there, you want to be able to say, okay, we'll get some people within the organization up to speed, and then they are going to be able to probably focus the efforts and know if things are going well or not so well. So they're going to be your kind of people on the inside. So not a huge amount of training required, but enough for them to, like I say, I did a course with Open Polytechnic. You can do a short course on AI, and then they will be kind of your eyes and ears on the ground. That's 3. There we go. So yeah, really
Fantastic.
mapping the process, picking a candidate, picking a pilot, picking an experiment, whichever word you use in your organization, and then build some internal capability to help manage that piece and work obviously with the people that know how the technology works.
Yeah, and one thing that's just come to mind as you've been listing those is also understanding the measurement of what success looks like. I think with any process improvement, particularly if you're using technology, we've got to be very clear on how are we going to win. And sometimes it's not about what headcount we're going to save, but it's what can be generated from redistributing that headcount into more value add roles. I think the concept around how do we keep adding value to our organization, I think it's got to be at the forefront of any process improvement. And for the implementation of a process or AI, I think organizations have to be very clear on what winning looks like.
I think, I mean, again, I mean, I'm a lean guy from way back, and the danger is that we make this a lean thing. So I'm looking at, okay, well, maybe use slightly different language to say, okay, well, we need to, I don't know, create a blueprint for AI. That would be maybe something we talk about, rather than we're going to do a value stream map and first focus on customer value and yeah. So it's almost like for me personally, I'm saying, okay, how can I make the same progress with people in terms of process without being too much of the lean guy, which is kind of hard. That makes sense, right?
Yeah, because you're saying the same things, you're doing the same processes. You just it's just putting a different spin on it, essentially.
I think there is something around to add to the what you should do is a bit of readiness in terms of get a very quick kind of checklist of, okay, well, what does your data look like? What's your security look like? We have the Treaty of Waitangi, so we have protection around Maori people and names and titles and places. So we have to check that we're not going to, transgress any of those rules and so on. So there's a few things, extra things around data that you have to be mindful of as well, because you might think it's a great idea, but actually your data is just not there, or your security is just not there. So even before you start.
Yeah, I think that's a great call, because also data security is such a fear for so many organizations, particularly for those that have government contracts that mandate that data can't go offshore, or there's always that thought between where's the data going, so people just rather don't do it. So getting that readiness is exceptional. So awesome, great. Well, I think that's enough of hearing my voice. I'm sure there's a number of people on the call that would love to ask a couple of questions. We've got 10 minutes left. Anyone like to kick us off?
I'll just kick off one to the I'll let Marcia go first rather than me.
Hi, team. Sorry, I'm actually in my pajamas, so that's why I don't have my video on. Great discussion, team. I just want to go to the soft side, and try to get some insights on how would AI be? Have you had experience of, let's say, using performance management as something that really needs that human brain to make sense of things? So making an analogy to the university student, is AI as good? Would you recommend if a business is constrained on the human side that needs a lot of emotional intelligence, social intelligence, how would like a human resource people officer wanting to streamline their processes on, let's say, a highly stressful environment for, counselors or social workers that really require that human element, how would they go about it? Is there any experience in this field, or is AI even more of a university student, maybe like a kindergarten student in this case?
I think what I've seen around HR space, over here, I don't know, we have a few, but Bamboo's I was actually working with a company pretty much full time for the last couple of years, and we were looking at what we could do around HR, because we had and payroll. And so Bamboo, for instance, did a really good job, and it's using AI for the onboarding process. So managing sort of all the admin, all the contracts, making certain that they know what we're doing on day one, who their buddy was, all the emails, So I think it's quite good at, again, that's a very highly repeatable kind of process, right? And low risk. And even sort of scheduling some of their training in the first 3 months, and the sign-offs, and their boss having to check in with them. So I quite like that, because those are the things that get missed when people get onboarded, things like induction. But I mean, what you're discussing, I don't think you'd let them loose with. It would be just too much. The enthusiastic, student would probably come up short on that one. But yeah, elements you can do, lots of things you can do. I mean, I've been using AI to help me do some process maps. It's actually quite good, but it still requires me to go back and sort of add the magics, so to speak.
Yeah, the one thing that I'd add to that, Marcia, is that I wouldn't want AI to be making the decision for me, but it could contribute to the decision. I've seen a number of allied health professionals use a version of AI to take notes from their sessions, to avoid them having to write the notes afterwards. But then it also, over time, you teach it, and then it asks you questions around the recommendations that you've done, so that it almost becomes like a co-facilitator in supporting your patients, and it reduces the administration load greatly. So I think that would be a positive use where, the allied health professionals not needing to take any notes whatsoever. It's all being done. Sorry, Brad, over to you.
I was just going to say on that, like, I love, Richard, how you brought up the word automation. Like, I think even a few months ago, I looked at the Toyota house again and I saw that whole right-hand pillar all built around Jadoka or automation. And I think that's such a truism what you said there, like, and you too, David, like, how do we use this to eliminate waste and support the human and potentially error-proof to a degree? And I think that's where the essence is. And that's where we'll get results.
Yeah, true, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And the question about the process mapping, Lucid Chart AI is the one. And I've been going through the program to just literally educate myself, and like I'm impressed, but it still requires me to go in and check it and move it around. One of my ideas is I'm going to do some process work and actually use Lucid Charts then to do all the outputs for me, and then have people collaborating with it, because it's very easy to collaborate using these cloud-based systems. I'm probably a 25-30 year veteran of Visio, so I'm trying to wean myself off a little bit.
I just saw everyone write down that, so I can just see Lucid Charts numbers are going to go through the roof over the next couple of days. Well done.
Yeah. I did ask AI what AI thought, and they actually confirmed Lucid Charts. It's actually about $15 a month. It's actually quite reasonable.
Yeah, great. Fantastic. Ryan.
Yes, I have a question on if everyone's using AI to try and like be competitive or taking an advantage, is there going to be a soft cap in the industries where we all sort of lean towards the same models? Would you lose a bit of the operational individuality that you have in the business? Because I do find that AI seems to reward creativity and how it is managed. So to simply put, do you reckon that if we all start using AI, we all get to the same endpoint and that we sort of lose the DNA in the businesses?
How to answer that? I actually don't think AI is greatly embedded anywhere. So what you're talking about may be quite a long way in the future. And I guess smart companies are going to say, well, we're going to differentiate ourselves by using AI only in moderation, and actually you're going to have humans involved if you deal with us rather than AI and so on.
Well, if you're using it as a tool to help, with say spreadsheets or define some sort of automated process, if we all start using the same GPT or Grok or Gemini, then we're all going to be sort of in the template of those systems. So
yeah, that's what Microsoft want you to do. They provided an environment, and their technology, love it or hate it, is robust. The security is robust. They're designing it so that, well, actually, we're all going to have Copilot, and Copilot is going to do all that. So, I mean, this is what you get with Microsoft, right? And the majority of people, I know Brad uses a Mac, but people are on the Microsoft, and it is, I won't say bulletproof, but I mean, it'll be, I guess, how you use the tools, right?
Yeah, definitely. Because you can definitely see with the Copilot, in the terms of the purchasing space, where you're talking to interconnected customers with supply chain, where you lose the nuances in how to sort of tap into how your partners are doing, and you just see those very fundamental broken down, just auto reply emails or those auto reply sentiments. So you sort of see a more, for lack of a better word, a robotic, or just a very neutral blank template that's something you would be spread about.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm originally a supply chain guy myself, and I'm like, well, what I learned was you need to get everybody in a room and understand what the process is end to end, and look for the handovers and the duplication. So you're not going to. I don't think you'll improve much using AI. You might make the process more efficient, maybe less labor intensive, but you need humans involved to actually come up with the wisdom, I guess, and then maybe make those big step changes.
And I think the other point to that is, even though we're all on the same system, and I don't know why this is, but my AI is going to be different to Richard's based on what I've given it. So over time now, using it for the last 18 months, it gives such a more detailed and more me response to things when I'm asking it questions versus what it did 18 months ago. So I think it's almost how we coach our AIs as well that's going to differentiate us from other people. Indy, morning.
Indy, hello, mate. I've not seen you for a long time.
Hello, how are you?
What a welcome. We're all very excited to see you.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think the question prompt around using AI for process mapping, and I do take your point around being constrained by sort of the technology that the organization that you're working for or with, that they may have some constraints around their environment. I mean, my own experience has been very much sort of daisy chaining sort of what I'm allowed to use in that environment. So using like the transcription from sort of Microsoft Teams to record a conversation, and then feeding that transcription into Copilot to come up with some process steps, let's say. So like, almost like that discovery conversation, and then from the interview with stakeholders, and then putting that into a spreadsheet that you can then fit into Visio to create sort of process map. And Visio has its own kind of import facility from an Excel. So it's just daisy chaining that together. It's far from sort of ideal. I mean, what kind of environment or set of tools or stack is your favorite, or is the one that kind of is the most seamless?
And I guess I'm basing it on myself, kind of small business size. So I've come up with Lucid Chart AI, which is still beta. I had a crack using Claude to do some mapping. I don't know how I did it, but it actually worked quite well. And it actually came up and presented information and actually gave me some analysis around what potential pain points are and what potential technology even could be used, which I took with a pinch of salt. But also using for a CRM, I forget the name of the bloody software now, HubSpot. So HubSpot has got a number of different things you can do with it on the marketing side, but also on automating some of that, customer relationship management stuff. So they're the two main ones that I have, along with the Microsoft suite. But Microsoft is a bit like that. It's very nuts and boltsy. You kind of, I think you can do CRM with Microsoft. I think it told me how I could do it, and I thought, well, I'll just use HubSpot because it can do all of that, and I just haven't got to worry about sucking stuff out of spreadsheets and so on. So there's a class of products, I guess, that are emerging that will help you kind of run your business smarter. And a lot of that creative stuff at HubSpot is, I hear that a lot. Bamboo, HR onboarding, I hear that a lot. So there's going to be a class of apps out there that can help people run their business using AI.
Thank you.
And Catherine's just popped in the chat that she's currently in the process of building an agent to coach people through day-to-day problem solving. Catherine, are you able to talk us through that?
Yeah, so we have Copilot at my workplace. And we've just been given access to also write agents in Copilot Studio Lite. So taking all the standards, so we have standards on what the different tools need to be able to do from a certification point of view. So what's a good problem statement look like? What should be included in it? What's not to be included in it? And so I've been building an agent that will help people, rather than having to try and get in touch with myself as a coach or one of the other coaches, they'll be able to go in and use this agent and say, here's my problem statement. Can you give me feedback so that I can refine and ensure that I'm, clear on what I'm trying to achieve? And then they can still have a coaching conversation with an accredited coach, but it helps speed up that learning for them, because it doesn't write it for them. It doesn't give them any, this is what the structure, this is what the problem statement should read. Instead, it actually coaches them through improvements and makes suggestions on what's missing, like you need to include some metrics, it needs to have some customer impact, that kind of stuff. So it's more of a learning tool with positive psychology included in there. And it's designed to try and get people through the basics of a PDCA. So it's only looking at 4 questions. What's the problem? Who are our customers? What do they need? What do they value? What's the root cause? And what can we test and learn? So are our solutions designed to protect our customers and be sustainable? And we're sort of in the final stages of testing with experts across the group with a view to roll out to everyone, because we actually believe it's valuable to everybody so that everyone can solve everyday problems all the time. Doesn't matter where you sit in the business. That's very exciting.
It is. That sounds fantastic.
Good news.
Yeah. And when you say that you've been building it, so have you been coaching it with responses to all the variety of different queries so that it has the knowledge to be able to answer as if it was coming to one of your coaches?
So what I did was we, in my team, we had years and years ago, we'd built standards for coaches. So if you are coaching a problem statement, or if you're coaching people through a particular tool, this is what good looks like. This is what we expect to be included in it. This is what you need, the level you need to coach to, so that we had, calibration across all the coaches. And so I've used that and set that as the standard. This is level 5, what's expected, and then built a rubric around every element that sits within that tool to say, does it meet this? If it has some components but not others, then it's this level. And then given sort of examples of the feedback that the agent should provide when it meets those different levels of achievement, so it can do that encouraging. And I've tested it a lot. I've done a lot of analysis to work out whether it's actually working, whether it's actually giving us the kind of responses that we want. It might give you a prompt at the end and say, would you like me to rewrite it for you? And people click on it and it says, oh, I'm sorry, I can't do that, but I can give you a checklist of what improvements you need to make. So it does do what it's told to do, but you need to vigorously test it. And I have tested it hundreds of times and had loads of other coaches test it for me, as they're working through, and business owners as well. So it's, it takes a long time, and, you have to refine it bit by bit.
I think that's a great example of having a really good process first and then letting it enhance it instead of the other way around. So that's a great case study. Well, congratulations, and we'll definitely be following up to see how that went, because I think that would be a great outcome to share with everyone. So I think we've come to the end of our session this morning. I think Victor signed off already. Thanks, Victor. But thank you. I just want to say again, thanks, Richard, for an incredible morning. Your insights have been invaluable, and thank you to everyone for your questions and for engaging this morning.
Thanks, folks. Thanks for coming.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Richard.
Bye for now.
What a great episode. Please like, share and subscribe to this show to help spread the word and truly help more organisations create a better future. Everyone, you can go to the Enterprise Excellence Group website, which is enterpriseexcellencegroup.com.au. to resources to get hold of process mapping templates and other tools to help you engage people more effectively, process map, and then use AI to eliminate waste or amplify value. Please go to the site and get hold of those tools now. There were two key takeaways for me from this show. The first one is that considering AI, the way you go about getting results hasn't changed from any form of technology. We need to start with engaging the people that do the work, who create the value at the front line, explore process with them, understand the waste, and then use AI to eliminate that waste if it's appropriate. The other aspect we can do is explore additional value innovation, and then what can AI do to help us amplify value for customers to drive top line productivity and results. The second key insight for me is the importance of productivity to drive prosperity for generations to come. We've got this great opportunity right now with technology done the right way to truly create productivity that's going to help the economic outcome and quality and experience of employees and generations to come. Productivity is such an important thing. Without it, the quality of living declines. And it's a really important concept, but it's got to be done the right way. Technology over the last 20, 30 years hasn't really given us the productivity results. If anything, it's driven us backward. This has been a great show to really help everyone learn how to go about getting productivity gains by using technology the right way. And thanks again, Richard, for all your knowledge. Thanks, David, for a great community hosting and for helping us with the Enterprise Excellence podcast. Thanks again. Bye for now.